So what makes me cranky about Star Trek Beyond? Yeah, that's in the actual movie, not just the trailer. Not only that, it turns out the song itself is the most powerful weapon the crew of the Enterprise has in this particular struggle, which is at once kind of pathetic and incredibly on the nose. If that's not enough modern music to make your time in the 23rd century feel right at home, you'll also be treated to Public Enemy's Fight the Power. The future really loves a fat beat, I guess. Anyway, given what I've said previously about the Star Trek reboot, you may be wondering how I was convinced to spend money on this in the first place. The bottom line is, I wanted to stick it to the Ghostbusters reboot, which is also why I didn't review that last week. See, while Star Trek Beyond is another cash grab reboot, and it has politicized itself with the gay Sulu thing, as we talked about in my last video, and CBS and Paramount have been dicks about the fan films, everyone involved with the production and marketing of Star Trek Beyond has not made it a point to insult me and other fans critical of their films the way the female Ghostbusters crew has. In fact, its director, Justin Lin, even went to bat for fans and fan films recently. So by seeing Beyond, I get to repay that favor and help punt the Ghostbusters reboot down a few spots at the box office. The question then becomes, how much misery did I have to endure just to spite the social justice mafia? Well, not as much as I thought. Don't get me wrong, Star Trek Beyond is still another completely generic action flick that could be any franchise with the most minor cosmetic changes. And these characters still bear very little resemblance to the ones in Star Trek I know and love. This Kirk's still a failboat, though somewhat rehabilitated by the movie, and the new ship is still ugly as sin, but there are two main differences here from the previous installments, and both of them have to do with the new team taking over, I think. One is that this movie doesn't feel like it has to constantly justify its Star Trek moniker with insultingly blatant fan service. There's some, of course, but it's not like, hey look, here's a random Tribble for no reason. You loved that episode with the Tribbles, right? Clearly you should love our movie now. Instead, all the stuff in Beyond that references classic Star Trek feels much more natural, particularly the way they wove the death of Leonard Nimoy into the story. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Justin Lin is a fan of Star Trek and JJ Abrams wasn't, so Lin's understanding of Star Trek isn't limited to the stuff that crossed over into the pop culture. Secondly, Simon Pegg is not a hack writer like Orci and Kurtzman, who are the guys responsible for the last two of these and other amazing pieces of cinema like the Transformers movies. Pegg actually created a mostly coherent story with things like character development in it, rather than simply vomiting out a sequence of dumbass action set pieces. There are moments that almost feel like a real Star Trek story where characters have to deal with real problems instead of problems they created by doing stupid shit like landing the Enterprise in an ocean just so we can have a cool Avengers-style shot of it rising out of the water later. Not that there aren't plenty of dumbass action set pieces here. After all, we've got Jason Bourne Kirk, and Fast and Furious motorcycle riding Kirk, and Superhero Kirk, who gets to fly high above a city thanks to some gravitational flux BS. That's actually the most irritating thing about this movie for me. It seems like we're finally going to get out on the frontier and have an adventure that won't involve aliens destroying another city full of humans, but they managed to create a space station that is essentially a giant city complete with loads of skyscrapers. And it's at risk of being destroyed by aliens! I think I may have seen this somewhere before. Not sure where. Of course, you can hardly boldly go out into the frontier when somebody destroys your starship, because this is the third movie, and since this reboot constantly retreads better Star Trek stories, we have to destroy the Enterprise again. It's a much longer and more involved sequence than the trailers seem to indicate, which makes it far less impactful than how the original Enterprise went out in the search for Spock. Lin tries really hard to make it work, but it's just another action set piece ultimately. Plus for me personally, the fact that they recast the one character that didn't have to be recast and made it into this ugly, unbalanced, kitbashy garbage cow looking thing, I found it incredibly satisfying to watch it get torn apart. Idris Elba plays the guy responsible for all this death and destruction, and he's pretty thoroughly wasted here. The makeup basically eats his performance, so you can't really see what he's doing. And ultimately, he's just another villain who wants vengeance for reasons. In fact, the big reveal with him is what took what was shaping up to be a very grand adventure on the edge of space and shrank it right back down into your latest Marvel movie knockoff. Fortunately, Scotty runs into our obligatory strong female character, or he would have easily pulled off his evil plan. At least she has something approaching character development, so she's not a total Mary Sue like Rey was in Star Wars The Force Awakens. And Sofia Boutella does a perfectly adequate job with the character, but I doubt it'll ever be a particularly memorable one. Speaking of social justice, it's kept reasonably light. Even the gay Sulu thing is about as unobtrusive as you can get, which is why it would have been nice if they had just kept it to a new character rather than changing an existing one. Especially since in the end, they basically just hit the reset button and put everybody right back where the last movie ended. All in all, like I said, it's a pretty straightforward action movie, and Justin Lin knows what he's doing with action, so he does it perfectly well. Though at times this one got really dark, and therefore was difficult to make out what was going on sometimes. I'm not sure if that was the movie itself or just the projector in the particular theater I was in. But otherwise, it's shot well, and it doesn't get too in your face with garbage like shaky cam, so it works well enough. If you want a mostly brainless couple of hours in the theater and or you want to step on Ghostbusters some more, I'd say a matinee might be an enjoyable time. If you're a Star Trek fan who doesn't care for the reboots as it is, it'll be far less fun for you, I'm sure. But at least this one doesn't feel like it's actively insulting your intelligence. But that's my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments. And if you would be so kind as to subscribe to my channel and promote it on the Federation network of your choice, I might finally be able to get my ship out of space dock.